Hey guys, I'm Josh Horowitz, and this man needs no introduction. Geralt of Rivia, aka Henry Cavill, is here with me. He's going to be answering my questions, and more importantly, your questions. Many of you have just seen the first episode of the new season of The Witcher. For the rest of you, if you're not, you are just days away. December 17th is the day. Thank you to all the fans tuning in all over the world. Trust me, this is going to be fun. We've got an exclusive clip coming up later on in the show, so make sure to stick around. But right now, the main event, Mr. Henry Cavill. It's good to see you, man.
Good to see you too. How you doing?
I'm doing very well. Congratulations. Season 2 is upon us. We are hours away. Butterflies, excitement. The world is about to encounter what you've been laboring over for many, many months.
Yeah, always excitement. When it gets to this stage, it's all about, for me, just watching online and seeing what everyone has to say, going to all the places I usually go to, all the same Reddit forums, and just seeing what everyone says and soaking it up and seeing how I can improve.
You've been traveling the world a bit lately to help spread the good word of this. London, Madrid. What's it like to see the fans out there? I mean, we've talked about this. You've known fandoms. Fandoms know you in the past for Superman, but now they see you as this other iconic character. Is it a different kind of an experience given this fandom versus others you've experienced?
I wouldn't say it's a different experience necessarily. Obviously, being on this tour was a different experience, with it being post-COVID and the COVID rules still in place. Not being able to interact with everyone was a real shame, because I do love going to these countries and seeing everyone and being able to say thank you in my own way by spending the time with them. But as far as fan groups are concerned, no, it's the same. It's that same passion, right, that same protectiveness over the thing that they love. And I love that because I'm one of them. I'm the same.
Have you started to see the depictions of yourself in the fan art and the tattoos, etc.? You must have, encountered fans with Geralt as you on their bodies, and that must be so surreal.
I haven't been able to, be out that much, and so I haven't seen much in the way of tattoos yet. We'll see how season 2 does. I mean, a tattoo after one season, right, that's quite the commitment.
It's on my back. At the end of this, I'm going to show it to you, and you be honest. Tell me what you think.
What I said, I didn't mean. Yeah, it's a great choice.
So a lot of fans out there have just seen the first episode. They got a sneak peek at it.
Yep.
How does this episode set the stage for what we're going to see in season 2? We get to meet some new people. Christopher Hifju is now part of it, although a little unrecognizable, perhaps.
Absolutely. Christopher is absolutely brilliant, as everyone has, well, at least a lot of you have seen, and I loved working with him. As I've said before, he's recognizable from his incredible bombastic performances in Game of Thrones, and this is also very bombastic, but there's such a beautiful performance he does right at the end, which is really deep and soulful and Shakespearean in its nature, and it touched me. And obviously I get to speak to Christopher on set, and so we were sitting there chatting about other projects and things that we'd love to do and work with each other on, and just to see this performance come out of him, you just think, okay, it's one thing having conversations, but then when you see a performance like that live in front of you and repeated, you realize that's someone you really want to work with.
Talk to me about what it's like for you as a star, as a fan. After season 1, you start to see the scripts for season 2. What struck you about what the writers, what the showrunners had in store for you for season 2 when they started?
Well, for me, it was I wanted to make sure that Geralt from the books was represented properly, and so seeing these scripts, I thought, right, okay, cool. I see what their plan is, and what I'd like to do is start to impress a more intellectual, a wiser Geralt. I mean, he has been around for 70+ years. Right. The chances are he's not going to be a dolt. And especially if he's survived this long, he's got to have some wiliness, at least, if not wisdom. Yeah. And so I started to impress this and say, right, look, this is important to me, because I love the source material, I love the books, and there's so much in the way of beautiful storytelling attached to that. And if that's stripped away for the sake of a comedy character, then it drops some things out. And so I've sent lots of emails and had lots of discussions, and that was ultimately my plan to try and bring more of that forward, because of what I was saying earlier. After season 1, I spent all my time on the forums, reading what everyone had to say, reading what the critics had to say, and trying to work out the best way to represent the thing that I loved so much in the show. And also people who had watched the show and gone, oh, this is pretty cool. Almost swore there. Sorry, everyone. Pretty cool. Then they went and read the books.
Right.
The books had a massive uptick in sales. And so people were well versed with the character they found in there. And I wanted to give them that.
It's so funny. It's like, because like, everything you say flies in the face of like most actors that are like never read the comments, never engage, right. And you just like go all the way to the other extreme because I guess you're a fan first, and you.
That's the thing. Yeah. It's I can completely respect and understand actors and producers and directors who don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But I'm one of those people who would not necessarily be commenting on forums, but if I see something, I'm like, okay, well, maybe that's not how I saw it, or I'd like to see it this way, or that's exactly how I saw it. And if I saw, I don't know, Raymond E. Feist's books adapted, I would be really, really interested to watch it and see what everyone has to say. And so the same thing with Sapkowski's. Yep. And it does matter to me because I got to know what everyone thinks, and everyone's going to have a different opinion across the board, and it's about selecting those opinions which are narrative driven, and you're like, okay, it's a little destructive in that opinion and consistently destructive, and I think I see what you're doing, like
cutting away the noise and seeing the heart of it.
Even the overwhelmingly positive ones, you're like, okay, there's also a narrative there, and so you pluck those out, and then you have everything else, and then you can just look at them across the board and think, right, how can I improve for everyone without losing what my own personal vision of when I read the books was like? And so, it's that fine balance.
Let's talk about some of the relationships that we're going to explore more in this season. Obviously, the relationship between Geralt and Ciri, very key in season 1, still very key in season 2. How are we seeing this relationship develop in new and interesting ways? How do you see it?
With Geralt and Ciri? With Geralt and Ciri, well, we obviously spent a very brief amount of time together in season 1, and so season 2, it was quite modernized initially at first, and then I started to layer in this more intellectual, wiser Geralt, and I wanted him to recognize her trauma. Because it's very easy to forget when you see a character like Ciri and you think she's been through trauma and it's really terrible, but we also forget that Geralt's been through trauma. He was younger than her and being filled with magical and chemicals and herbs and screaming until he almost died, and kids are dying around him. And then the people who did this to him are like, we're your friends. And
the therapy bills are off the charts.
And then they were like, and by the way, you survived, but you survived surprisingly well, so we're going to do more to you.
Right.
And then he went out into the world, and the world hated him. And so he's also experienced trauma, and from someone who's gone through that, he's going to have that sense of patience with her and that sense of waiting. And plus, she's been through a lot. She's going to lash out from time to time. And instead of him lashing out in return, he's going to try and sit back and try and understand. Two aspects, his wisdom and also recognize trauma. And so those were things which I really wanted to layer into the character. And Freya was brilliant. She was really brilliant at walking that line between someone who's gone through that and doesn't want to share, someone who's harboring a secret as well, and at the same time someone who feels deep down that there's something about this rather strange character, this inhuman character that she can start to trust. And then there's also these other inhuman characters that she can start to trust. And she did such a wonderful job. It was a real pleasure working with her, and the depths that she goes to in performance it's brilliant.
The world of The Witcher includes some places we've heard of but haven't seen yet. This season we get to see Kaer Morhen. Talk to me about why that was exciting, what was intriguing about finally getting to see that important aspect of the Witcher universe?
Kaer Morhen, for me, I obviously discovered first in the Witcher games, and Witcher 3 specifically is where that's the one I really played, and it was such an extraordinary place. That vista, the scenery, and you immediately have that connection to this world because CD Projekt Red did such a good job in creating it in the game medium. But then when I read the books, obviously the short stories are fantastic in books 1 and 2, but I wanted to know more about Geralt. I wanted to know his background, and I digress here, but being a Warhammer fan,
it always goes back to Warhammer.
Yeah, it always goes back to Warhammer. I read all of these codices and back in the day, the army's books, and they're all background, and it's all endless amounts of lore, and you get to know sort of the deeper and deeper nature of all of these characters, whether it's the Primarchs in the Black Library series or not. But it becomes this thing where you're going, but why? But what? And where does he come from? And who is he? And so Blood of Elves showed me that. It took me to this place, and it showed me these other witches and the way that they stand, and they all stand in the same way because they've been trained in a certain way. And it just such wonderful world building and character building in such a massive way, but amongst such a finite group. And that's why Kaer Morhen was so important to me. I wanted to have that same feeling from reading the books, and Andrew Laws did such an amazing job designing those sets, and it was a stunning place.
I mean, talking about fleshing out the character and the backstory, etc., you must have been very much looking forward to seeing Vesemir enter the story this season. What can you say about the relationship that we're going to get to see finally?
Well, again, this is something which I to impress the idea of three-dimensional male characters onto what was there, and I wanted to make sure that these characters were rich and complex. And it's quite easy to fall into they're grumpy, roughy-tufty guys who fight all the time and they're very antagonistic, and I didn't want that to happen. I wanted to show the soulfulness of these characters, and I'm very, very lucky to know a number of people, actually, who have done some extraordinary things in the armed forces and been in very select groups. And those people are the most soulful I know. They're the most emotionally connected to one another and also have the capacity to be emotionally connected to other people. I'm sure there's a very long psychological road to go down as to work out the why of that. Sure. But that's what I really wanted represented with this group, and especially amongst Vesemir and Geralt, who have a particularly close connection. Yes. And so, again, another thing I campaigned for was to make sure that it was a soulful relationship and a genuinely open, sensitive, meaningful one.
Deep psychological relationships and great settings. Let's talk monsters. I mean, come on, you can't do it without the monsters.
Yeah, but the cool stuff.
The cool stuff. As the 12-year-old in me comes out. Episode 1 in season 2, we see the Bruxa. What can we expect from the monsters we're going to see in this season? Was there it's hard to keep raising the bar, but you have to.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of monsters, and they're all very exciting. And there's a new origin story based around them, and I don't want to say too much, actually, because there's a lot for everyone to discover still. But the VFX team have done an absolutely brilliant job. They really, really have. And Andrew Laws helped design all the monsters as well. And they all look brilliant. And it's very, very exciting stuff, and lots of peril and danger.
Does it ever get easier? I mean, you've done so much work opposite things that aren't necessarily right in front of you. Does that always feel a little silly on set, or have you accrued so much experience now where if there's a guy that's going to be able to do this, I'm your guy, because I have the PhD in this by now.
I mean, I definitely have experience in it, for sure. I remember laughing at myself fighting Doomsday, and laughing at the guy who was playing Doomsday because he was playing something really big, but the way the outfit he was dressed in and everything and the actions he was doing made him look like he was really angry and small. and it was just this wonderful comedic moment, but you get so used to that kind of stuff, and it's become an art form now, and everyone's a lot more comfortable with it, so there's less embarrassment amongst the performers doing it, and they do it so well that even if it's a performer there in a suit, or if it's just no one there, it's something that you get used to, and it's now part of the craft, and it's something that actors are required to be able to do. The big thing is trust. It's trust in the people who are going to make the cuts, the people who are going to put the VFX together, to make sure that they make you look your best. And that's a big thing.
Yeah, you can't have a doubt in your mind. You have to like commit 150%, or else it's not going to show up.
You do, yeah, and just hope for the best.
The physical transformation for you is always important to this character. Obviously, talk to me about like when you get in the makeup chair and you go through that process, and when you go back into season 2, that must give you so much just as you start to transform. Does it change your mindset as you sit in that chair?
Yes, it does. Absolutely.
You're like, no, I just want to get out of that. Shorten it.
Yeah, no. Jackie Rator and Alva Lamas are my hair and makeup, respectively, and they are extraordinary at what they do. And so the amount of work that goes into that and the transformation process becomes such a thing that once it's finished and done, and you do look like the character, you don't feel like you are wearing a funny wig and you've got white makeup on. It becomes something else, and you start to move differently, and you start to become, I mean, I always think of Geralt as the way he moves is predatory, and because he is this finely honed and trained hunter, and so them doing that thing just makes that easier to start moving that way. And then you get into costume, and the contacts go in, and then it's all there. And it's something which I've tried to do for my co-stars, is wear the contacts if I'm off camera, because it does make a difference. That look does make a difference. And I hope it helps rather than hinders, because I mean, you can sometimes lose a bit of the emotionality with contact lenses in. But it is a certain look, and you can see people reacting differently. You know how the energy feels different around you, and it is enormously helpful.
It must be such a boost to also know season 3 has already been announced, has been greenlit. That's amazing. Indeed. So is your head already in the future? Have you talked to everybody about sort of what the plans are? Are scripts starting to come in, or is it early days yet of what season 3 is going to look like?
It's early days-ish, yes. There's always work to do at this stage. There's always work to make sure that, I mean, for me personally, it's always focusing on Geralt and making sure he's represented. And so that'll be the body of my work. I can't change storylines. I can't change the plot. But what I can do is campaign to make sure that Geralt's represented in the best way that those storylines and the vision will allow.
So as promised, we do have an exclusive clip coming up at the end, but right now I want to give the fans out there, and there's so many watching this right now, a chance to ask some questions. I've got some fan questions I'm going to ask on their behalf. We'll run through a bunch. Let's start with, this is from Vanessa in Peru, who wants to know, what is the biggest challenge to playing a character and something that you're a fan of?
Oh, good question. Should I answer to you or to the cameras?
To me.
Okay, yeah.
Maybe I'm just selfish. To me.
Yeah, me. These are my questions.
I'm Vanessa now.
Yeah. So there is a challenge in that, and it is treading the line between a dogged faith to the source material and the showrunner's vision, and what she has planned for everything and for the characters. And so it's treading that fine line and just making sure that no matter what, when I leave the thing, I felt like I've done everything I possibly and humanly can to represent the character in the way that I feel it should be represented.
Mm-hmm. Christopher R. here in the United States wants to know, is there a particular ritual to get into character before going in front of the camera? We talked about being in the makeup chair, but is there anything that you go over in your head, a mantra or anything that just gets you into the right frame of mind?
There were some days when the going got tough, and it was just about trying to put myself in the right headspace rather than the wrong headspace. Practice some stoicism, which is always a good one, and actually listen to some of the Witcher 3 soundtrack.
Amazing.
Because obviously my first introduction really at length, and that's a great soundtrack. And so it just kind of gets into you like, right, okay, cool, this is the stuff I loved, and this is when I was imagining making a movie or a TV show about it. And so you just start to get into that frame of mind, and that becomes the focus rather than anything else.
So you want to imagine like going back to your like childhood bedroom and you're like watching TV or something, and your parents are like, shut it off, and you're like, no, this is research.
Yeah, I'm researching.
Trust me.
Believe me.
Trust me.
20 years' time,
Yeah.
you'll regret saying that.
Exactly. This is Maria S. in the Dominican Republic, wants to know, how does Geralt and Yennefer's relationship evolve in season 2?
That is a difficult one to answer without spoilers, but there is plenty of original story, so lots of surprises for even the people who are well versed in the books. So yes, you'll have to wait and see for that one, I'm afraid.
Debbie T. in Canada wants to know, how does Geralt compare with other roles you've played? Is there any commonality? Does this feel like you can relate it to any other roles, or does Geralt stand apart?
I think Geralt stands apart. He's a particular character, and that's what's so wonderful about him. He is obviously a hero character and a representation of good.
Sure.
But he also does certain things which your average hero wouldn't do, and is fine with it.
Right.
Like the idea of killing all of the guys in Blaviken, he was only really bummed out by killing Renfrey because it was just such a misunderstanding there. And the show definitely represented it as a love thing, but it was just more of a, this didn't have to happen, and he gave us so much of a chance, as far as how I felt. And I just wanted to make it that was sad, but Geralt was fine with murdering everyone else, and that is a really interesting hero character because it subverts everything.
Yep.
And it makes you question his actions, and he also questions his own actions, and it becomes an interesting philosophical line which is constantly darting and weaving all over the place.
Definitely. This is from Luisa F. in Mexico. We know that actors put at least a bit of themselves into their characters. How much of you can you see in Geralt?
It's really tough to separate what is me and what is not, because when you play it so often and so much, when you're talking about 6-7 months doing a thing, and long days, 6 days a week, and I think it all kind of blends into one ultimately. I can definitely draw some similarities between myself and Geralt in the fact that we're both kind of nomads, both live on the outskirts of society in a way, and both have pools of friends around the place, but a select core group. And that definitely introduces or encourages certain character traits in one. And I would say those are some similarities, but it's difficult to really separate the two a lot of the time. Yeah,
people forget. I mean, just like living and breathing in those shoes for that much period of time, it's just, you can't help.
Especially when you're thinking about it all the time. It's just not like I stop thinking about it when I finish work and go home. It's a constant thing. I'm thinking about how can I improve, how can I protect, how can I make sure that this character comes across in the best way possible. It's going to do justice to the love that the fans have for this character.
Let's see. Marcello B. from Brazil wants to know, barring Geralt, which character is your favorite from season 2?
Barring Geralt?
Yes.
Which character? That's a really good question.
Hard to pick favorites, but is there a new character, or is there?
It's hard to. I mean, I want to be careful about dropping any new characters, just in case. Out of the slew that have been mentioned already, I don't want to be like, oh, sorry, Netflix, ruined that one. I think because of what you guys have seen, at least some of you have seen, I would say Nivellen was pretty extraordinary just because of Christopher's performance and the amount of hard work that went in with the prosthetics team and the VFX for that. It was really, really well done. And Christopher especially, he's a truly magical human being.
Yeah, a lot of life force in that guy, definitely. This is from, forgive the pronunciation, I'll probably butcher it. It's either Kai or Key W from the United States. What is one moment while shooting The Witcher that made you learn something new about yourself personally or as an actor?
There were lots of moments. Went through a lot of growth that last season, but I would say probably tearing my hamstring was a pretty big one. That because it led to a whole bunch of other things as well, and that was a big one. Yeah, that when you think, okay, that was an injury, which it was a shame that it happened, and it could be the injury which changes the trajectory of my career from here, just as things were really hitting a good stride, which is a ironic thing to say considering it was a hamstring tear. But yeah, probably that taught me an awful lot, and as I wouldn't necessarily say as an actor, but definitely as a person. But there was a lot to have been learned. Yeah.
Is there change in, I mean, obviously the physical commitment, and you are as dedicated as they come. Like, how do you adjust after that? I mean, when like part of your livelihood is your body and using your body, and that must just be psychologically just a really.
It's like, yes, yeah, it was a challenge, and the biggest thing was that balance between wanting to protect myself and my career, and also trying to help production and respond to the demands that they had for the hours needed to be worked. And sort of it's 5.5 hours was, well, 5 hours was the max I was supposed to be allowed on my feet a day, and you push beyond that. And when someone says, hey, can you do 6 days? Can you do 7? Like, is it right if we just do a little bit more? And then it's that point where you go, I really want to help. It hurts, but it doesn't hurt that much. Can I go any further? And it took a couple of times of me just taking a moment and saying, look, don't be a fool.
Right.
All it takes is one slip, and that thing re-tears, and then you're in real trouble.
Right. And
right now you're in trouble, but then you'd be in genuine trouble, which could... That's your fault, that stage, because it's your job to say no. And thankfully I had an amazing physiotherapist with Freddie Murray.
Yeah.
And he looked after me, and he set the rules, but he also said, look, what you need to do is what you need to do, and understand that. I will pull the plug if I think you're being insane. Right. But otherwise, it's your body, and I can't tell you how you're feeling.
This is from Ina J in the Philippines. Do you have any favorites in the Witcher short stories by Sapkowski? We know you do.
Yeah.
Many. 10 minutes later.
Yeah. And then Josh realized he had made a mistake.
I'm just going to sneak off now.
Yeah. I would say easy answer to that is Sword of Destiny. When Geralt and Cirilla first meet, and they're in Brooklyn Forest, just the nature of the character relationship and development there, and you also see this incredibly caretaker-like side of Geralt in Blood of Elves, but you see it there with the way he talks to Ciri and the way he treats Ciri, and then you see how he is at the end, which can come across as harsh, because he's walking away from this little girl crying, who's saying, "You're my destiny, please come back," and he's looking like he's rejecting her, but he's still protecting her.
Yep.
He's walking away from this child who he says, you're gonna have no business living with a Witcher. Like, he thinks he's doing her a favor, and I just thought that whole story was so beautifully done, and it was so wonderfully connected, and it showed the mystical side of Geralt and what the Dryad connection, what they thought of him, and the Waters of Broccolon, and then just lovely storytelling moments, like him telling the story about the cat and the fox, and then when he tells her to run, she runs up a tree because of the story he told her, and it's just absolutely stunning. And you also see little bits of Geralt with the pupil contraction into a cat's eye with the sun, and I thought that was really cool. Just little bits of detail like that, and you also realise he's not unbeatable because he's about to get his ass kicked, and then Moustack turns up, and I can say that, can I? The A word? Yeah, just like, sorry.
The Witcher, you can say what you like.
Get about his butt kicked. And then Mousak turns up with a whole bunch of Central Knights and saves him. And so it's not this superhuman superhero character. and he's fallible, and yet he's also wonderful at the same time. And that story just held so much as far as character relations. I remember seeing this lovely piece of artwork of him lying down with the Dryad and Ciri, and one on either side, and it just looked so beautiful for this sort of gruff, rather stern, cold but philosophical and intelligent man being so caring. And it was a lovely little piece of art. I don't think it was official. It was probably fan art.
Well, let's end with this. You've been very complimentary with your cast, but it is an amazing company of actors in this. Kevin wants to know simply, what's it like to work with such an amazing cast? I mean, you guys have to be, as we said before, be all fully committed to the fantasy world that is created here. What's it been like to share the stage with these folks?
It's been amazing. They are extraordinary performers. Freya, Anya, and you know what? I'm not going to go naming everyone because it just ends up me naming everyone. Right. But they really are. It takes so much hard work to do this, and there's some tricky material to work with, and they have just poured life and magic into it, and it's extraordinary to see. And I don't know if it's my place to say that I'm proud of them, but I'm proud to have worked with them.
Yeah.
And I think everyone's going to be really, really happy with the performances when they watch the rest of the season.
Congratulations on the new season, my friend. Your passion and excitement for this material is always contagious. I know everyone around the world watching this is very excited for the season. My thanks once more to Mr. Henry Cavill, and thanks, of course, to the fans out there that are watching. Remember, season 2 on